All right, good morning to everyone who's watching this in the morning, and anyone who's watching it in the afternoon, is good afternoon. And I see that there's some people that watch it in the evening, so good evening. Today we're continuing what we started learning yesterday about God. Learning about God. So we see that God, that's the story of the Bible, is that God created the world, and Hasidut teaches us that he's creating it all the time. So he's creating you and he's creating me. So we should feel this. Do we feel it? We don't even know what to look for. We're supposed to look for that God is feeling what is creating us. And so not only that, well, one thing you can see a little bit how God is creating you is that he's creating us for a purpose. He's creating us for a purpose. And we see that the world is very dynamic. Just for instance, we're breathing. You just can't sit there and not breathe for too long. And if you do, even if you don't breathe, you're making an effort not to breathe. Because naturally people breathe. And your heart is beating, circulation is going around. And you have to eat. People eat. Baby, as soon as he comes out, pretty soon afterwards, he wants to eat. So people have natural desires and people have natural things. And this is good. This is good. Or potentially it's good. Potentially it's also bad. People can be gluttons. They can be gluttons. They can be, how do you say, overactive. They can try to take possessions of other people. Everybody wants their own space. People start to get apprehensive. Maybe somebody's going to take my food away from me. Maybe there's a lot of problems. So Judaism looks at it like this, that these problems are not problems, that they're really opportunities and challenges. And that they appear to be challenges, that they appear to be difficulties and how do you say, problems and pitfalls and traps that people put themselves into, and they get addicted to things. That's the outside. That's the outside of everything. But everything has inside of it a soul, a purpose. Everything. Everything is inspired. In Kabbalah, sometimes it's called a spark. Everything has a purpose why you should be using it. Now, this message I'm giving you is especially relevant to Jews, because the Jews are different. The Jews are different. The Jews have this different responsibility to the Creator than everybody else. That's the Jews. That's why the Jews were prisoners in Egypt. And at first they couldn't figure out why. They didn't do anything wrong. What did they do? They didn't do anything. They were born in Egypt and they suffered and they were slaves. And then God took them out. He took them out. And it says that most of the Jews didn't even want to go out, and they didn't go out. And they got out and they wanted to go back. And then God gave them his Torah. He didn't give it to anybody else. He only gave it to the Jews. Only the Jewish people. Who are the Jewish people? Anyone who either their mother was Jewish or they converted properly. Even though in the beginning he had a lot of trouble from the converts. That was called the era of the mixed multitude. But afterwards it worked out. So nevertheless, only the Jews got the Torah. And the Torah is there to reveal how to use everything in the world. It's revealed to the Jews, how to use everything in the world. And one of the parts of the world is also the non-Jews. The non-Jews. But it's not our job to use them. How we are supposed to use the non-Jews is to educate them, to be themselves, to be who they really are, to be what God created, not what God is creating all the time. So everything in the world has an external to it and an internal to it. It's got a body and it's got a soul. And when the soul is revealed, like in a human being, right? A person that doesn't know what's a soul is the dynamic purpose of a person. A person feels, he's got a reason to be in the world. That's his soul. He's got a reason to be. That can also be perverted. We see that there's people have been, the Nazis and the Genghis Khan or whoever it is, people have become perverted to go after the wrong goals. That's also possible. Your soul can also be misused. Also possible. Can be misdirected. but never. That doesn't mean let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. That doesn't mean that the body is bad, and it certainly doesn't mean that the soul is bad. The soul person's feeling of purpose in life, right? And even if you don't know what the purpose is, but at least you know that there is a purpose. That I'm waking up in the morning, God is going to surprise me. Who knows what's going to be? Right? Who knows what's going to be? So that's but now we're talking mostly here about the Jewish people. And the Jewish people, their thing is to tell everyone in the world that their real responsibility and loyalty and connection and meaning in life can be found in their connection to the Creator, who the Creator is creating everything. That's pretty good, right? We're not talking about some God that's just in heaven. God creates heaven also. Don't get me wrong. There's good and there's bad. People go to heaven and they go to hell. God, it shouldn't be that way, but they go to hell. But that's not our concern. Our concern is there's a tremendous, how do you say, the mechanism going on behind this whole thing. A tremendous inner anatomy, dynamic anatomy, like in a human being. There's the stomach and the nervous system and all these other systems and everything. Right? A computer, there's all these wires and connections and things. It's all going. It's not just a screen. The same thing is in the world. So the Rebbe says that this basically is the secret of eating food. Eating food in the world, that's pretty basic. I mean, a person can get down to, eating is a necessary thing, and it's a good thing. Some people get to be anorexic, or they go, who knows, to the Far East or something, and they think that not eating is a big accomplishment. I remember once, I'll tell a story. I was not always religious, right? So until I was 25 years old, I'm a Jew, but I was not religious. So I got really interested in all these Far Eastern meditative practices, all these different yogis and things like this. And to tell you the truth, if there weren't so many of them, I probably wouldn't be talking to you now if there was only one. But there's so many hundreds of them, it just was like Alice in Wonderland. You couldn't figure out which one to take. Anyway, so there was one that I really got interested in. It was pretty good. And I was, there was some sort of a Tibetan tantric yoga or something. I don't remember. Anyway, so I got interested in it. I figured I'll get to the end of this book before I start actually doing any of these practices. I wanted to see what the guy has to say. Where's he going to? But it was pretty interesting. You get all these levels and revelations and things. And finally, in the end, the last page, so there it says, this is the great master. And the guy had like a name that had 50 letters long. Maybe they add a letter every time he gets to another level or something. But anyway, yeah, this name was like Gongo Wanda Danda Zana Wanda Purta Nunamu Bazan, a huge name. And he said he has been sitting in the mountains of Tibet and has not eaten anything for over 30 years. Not eaten, or he doesn't, I mean, maybe he didn't drink it. I don't remember. Anyway, he said he has not eaten anything for 30 years. So I thought to myself, this is what I'm aiming for. This is the goal of this book, to get me to be like this guy. I mean, what does he do except for not eat? He does something practical. It's a big accomplishment. He's going for not to eat. No, this is not for me. I'm not interested in that. Eat healthy, good, but not eat at all. And good, so you don't eat. I can understand, but that's like an accomplishment, not to eat. Okay. So eating is a wonderful thing, and it connects us to the world, and the world is a wonderful place, potentially, but actually not so good. Not so good. Even though there's once in a while you can see a beautiful sunset, or you look in child's eyes and you can see, there's hope in the world, or there's a rain comes down, and it washes away and it's invigorating, or, you see the wind in the trees, or you see something like that. Good. I think there certainly is beauty, and there's certainly what to appreciate, no doubt about it. And there's certain things that can make you happy, but there's so much deeper levels of accomplishment, happiness, meaning the humanness that there is in the world. Okay, so let's go. That's the preparation for this thing. So that's what the Rebbe says. Nowadays, take the example of food, there is the external part of the food and the internal part. The external part of the food is that it keeps you alive and it tastes good, and and it sustains you. That's the external part. What's the inside? The inside is that when you eat, you can have a clear mind, and you're not concerned with your body so much, and you can serve the creator of the universe. Now, this is especially to the Jews. This is especially for the Jews. The Jews are going to be first, because the Jews have to bring to the world the idea that God is infinitely close to us, and he is infinitely dynamic, that he wants us, he longs for us, he created us in order to reveal the potential that we have inside of us. Every human being, according to Judaism, has presently revealed, I'm just, exact 0.0000 whatever it is, 1% of his potential of happiness and productivity and the how do you call it? The optimism and love and appreciation, and we've revealed such a little amount of the good which is inside of us, but it's there, and that's the idea of food. Food, there's the external part of the food and the internal part of the food, right? So the Rebbe says this is hinted at in this week's Torah portion by Abraham burying Sarah in a place which is called Me'arat HaMachpelah, in the cave of the doubled place. Machpelah means doubled place. Or maybe you can, Machpelah is also like the copy. There's a double, is original, and then there's the copy. Me'arat HaMachpelah. It says, what's going on over here? Okay, now you have to remember this story about Abraham and Sarah dying, and Abraham going to find a burial. Who wrote this story? God himself, the same God who's creating you and creating me, and creating the whole universe, and creating the heavens, and creating, the Gan Eden, what's called going to heaven, the afterlife, and all the angels. God is creating all this. He is the one that wrote the Torah. That's what we believe. Torah is not just a history book. It is a history book also, but it's not just a history book. Just like food has the outside and the inside, the Torah has the outside and inside. So the inside is levels, inside. But one of the inside levels is that everybody has inside of them. So let's talk about the Jews first. Every Jew has inside of himself a Sarah and a Rachel and a Leah and an Avraham and a serpent, right? And a serpent and Lavan and all the evil things in the Torah and all the good things in the Torah. And it also has inside of himself this thing of the Me'arat HaMachpelah, the double cave. So he says this double cave is hinted at by the 12 loaves of bread that were in the Holy Temple. In the Holy Temple, there were 12 loaves of bread. We talked about this yesterday, and they were on a special table which was placed in the table, which was opposite the menorah, opposite the, what do you call it, the candelabra? The menorah, they had the 7 branches. It was lit. There was oil things on oil cups on top of it. And the Kohen would light it every day. Well, opposite that, in the room that was called the Holy, which was just right before the Holy of Holies. In the Holy of Holies, there was only the Torah in the Arkan. But the outside was the menorah, and there was a little incense table. And on the right side was this table that had 6 shelves on it. And every shelf, there was 2 loaves of bread. On each side of the shelf, there was 2 loaves of this face bread, it was called. 6, altogether was 12. So it says, I will reveal, I'm going to go back to where we were yesterday, just the beginning. It says, there will be revealed to you, this is talking about in the future, when the Mashiach comes, there will be revealed to you the reason, Yagal Tamid, the beats, that is within Tresar, the 12 Nahame breads. That's what it says. It's in the song that was written by Isaac Luria, the Arizal, and we sing the song in the day of Shabbos, the meal, in the daytime of Shabbat. We sing, it's a short song, a beautiful song. Yagal olim tam made the beast tresar made the inun dis the inun as it says there will be revealed to you the secret of the 12 loaves of bread, and they are in God's name. The inun, that they are bishmei, they are in God's name. Okay, so the secret of the 12 loaves of bread. So the Rebbe says, okay, what the 12 loaves of bread are obviously for eating. It says they would take it out every Shabbat, and the Kohanim would eat it. And before the Shabbat, they would put new loaves of bread in. And it's okay. So these 12 loaves of bread is the secret of food. It says they would put it in the middle, in the beginning of the week, and it would remain fresh the whole week. And by the way, it was not chametz, it was matzah. It was just thick. It was matzah. It was like a one tepach thick matzah. And okay, so there's the secret of this bread is the secret of food. And the secret of food is the secret of the meaning of life, that there's an external and an internal. And that's what the Rebbe said, that just like food, there's the external part of the food, which is the promotes egotism, right? A person eats, he becomes more egotistical, right? He wants to eat and he eats, so he satisfies his desire. So he's like sort of the boss. He's sort of like the altar, and he's sacrificing all this food to himself. And then when he does, he feels satisfied. That's what was in the holy temple. It says that the altar, the outer altar would eat. It's korbani lachmi. It said, my sacrifices are my bread. God says, the sacrifices are my bread. It made God satisfied. I'll go and understand that, but that's what it says. Because the whole thing of the sacrifices is not that God wants to meet. He likes it well done or something. No, it's because it's God's will. God just decided, do it. That's what God decided. And when we do what God wants, it doesn't make any difference what it is. It was standing on our head, something, but God doesn't want us to stand on our head. He wants us to have a holy temple, and the holy temple to bring cows and things. Why God wants such a weird thing like that? I'm not God. If I was God, I would probably want, but I'm not God. So God, that's what God wants. He wants there to be a holy temple, and that we should bring sacrifices on it. Makes not absolutely, but no sense logically why God would want sacrifices. But the amazing thing is he does want it. So that's the idea of eating. The holy temple, there was eating, and by us there's also eating. Now when we eat, are we doing it for ourselves and that we think we're God? We have the feeling that we're God, which is a very natural feeling. What do you mean you feel you're God? That you exist. Here I am. I exist. Existence, that's God's main feature, that he exists. He creates all existence. But if I say, no, God's not creating me, I don't feel God creating me. I feel myself. So that's called selfishness. But if you eat, it enables you to recognize, to use that energy, to think, to contemplate, to use your heart and your brain and transform that selfishness, that food that you eat, to good. So he says that's the whole idea, the difference between the eating on the Shabbat for a Jew, for the eating on Shabbat and the weekday. In the weekday, the food has this element of bad in it. And so you have to work hard to use that energy, not to eat too much, and to eat properly, eat kosher, and to make a blessing before you eat, make a blessing after you eat. But afterwards, you have to use that energy and go against nature. You have to defy nature and think about the Creator and learn the Torah and do the commandments, etc. Again, we're talking about the Jews here, and the Jews have to be an example to all mankind. But mankind does not have an obligation to serve God. They have an obligation to appreciate God. According to some things, they have an obligation to love God, to pray to God, right? But not to serve God. Serving God is all, that's the Jews, that's what we have the Torah for. Okay. But you should know that there is such a thing. That's the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple is only for the Jews. The eating, a non-Jew can go to the Holy Temple. But the Holy Temple is a Jewish edifice. The whole thing is, and every Jew is a holy temple. That's the way God created the world. I didn't create the world. If I would have created the world, I would make equality and who knows what. That would be the biggest woke or whatever it is maybe in the world. But I didn't create the world. This is what God said. Okay, here we go. Eating the weekday, this is what's called birur. This is what says from the sentence in, what is it, Proverbs, the stomach of the selfish people is always lacking. But the eating that we eat on Shabbat, what happens on Shabbat? Shabbat is the day that God rested, so to speak, from the whole world. The whole world becomes elevated. The whole world rests, so to speak, internally. We rest. What does it mean to rest? We don't have to work so hard. This is Hamshacha Milamayla. This is a drawing down, a revelation of God from above to satisfy us. Machmas Hamshacha Milamayla, the Savua Nafsho, that we get a spiritual satisfaction on Shabbat because of the food, just as it is in its source. Lamaila, before it fell down in the breaking of the vessels. Do you remember we learned about the idea of tohu and tikkun? That really the physical world is higher in its source than the spiritual. It's higher than the physical world in its source, is higher than the body in its source is higher than the soul. That's why there's going to be the raising of the dead. The souls are going to come into the body because the body is really higher. Well, a little bit of that is also in the food. Food is like a body. On Shabbat, it's revealed a little bit that the body is higher spiritually than the soul. Doesn't mean you can do what you want. It means that the refinement that you made on the body of the food and the whole week, that you put meaning into everything and you defied nature and you tried to find the inside of everything, on Shabbat, that happens more automatically. You don't have to have such work in order to make it spiritual. There's less egotism on Shabbat. That's what it says, less egotism on Shabbat. If, of course, you observe the Shabbat and you feel the inside of it. Somebody wrote me a letter, there has to be the soul and the body, so that the soul is the law, but the body is the law, but the soul, that's the feeling, appreciation, the contemplation about what God is, trying to awaken that soul, that Jewish soul, to awaken it up. On the weekdays, you have to work harder because the Jewish soul is here in order to fix up the world. That's the whole thing. The Jewish soul is here in order to correct and harmonize and bring blessing into the world, the physical world, not to go to heaven. So on the weekdays, you have to work hard to do this, but on Shabbat, there's a special blessing, and that's what it says, the eating on Shabbat, there's a special blessing, and it enhances our soul. And there, it enhances the food has in it a source which is higher than the spiritual. And this source is revealed by means of the spiritual on Shabbat. This source is revealed. Like it's written in the Zohar, Perish Shabbatchem Lo Ka'omar. It says that it's a prophecy. What is it in Isaiah? That it says, I will make you eat the excrement of your holidays. Right? He's talking to the Jews. Isaiah is very hopeful. Isaiah tells the Jews that, listen, Jews, no matter what you do, God is going to love you. God is going to redeem you. He's going to bring you back to Israel. He's going to build the third temple. But meanwhile, if you don't do what God wants, you're really making him angry. I mean, in the end, it's going to be okay. He's your father. But you should know that because he's your father, and you're really driving him insane, and he's going to punish you. And you're going to get all sorts of terrible punishments. You don't punish the next door neighbor's kid, right? Next door neighbor, no matter how much you like your next door neighbor, you don't punish his kid. You know, if he talks sassy, you go outside and he says, hey, Mr. Groyce, right? He calls you out, Mr. Groyce, you're ugly, you're stupid, I hate your guts. You're not going to punish him. But if your son says to that, Daddy, you're ugly, you're stupid, I hate your guts, he keeps it up, you're going to punish him. Right? You're going to punish him, take him to a doctor or something. Kick him out of the house, put him in an institution. Who knows what you'll do? The same thing with God and the Jewish people. So Isaiah is telling the Jews, you're not observing the holidays properly. You're doing everything for yourself. It says, perish chagechem. It says, I will spread the excrement of your holidays. You're eating nice meals. I'll spread the excrement from your meals on your faces. the excrement of your holidays, the holiday meals that you eat, I'll spread it on your face. This is perish chageichem bepanechem, the excrement. So it doesn't say, but it doesn't say the excrement of your Shabbos. On Shabbos we also eat. Why? That which is done in the weekdays, like in the weekdays, there is what's called excrement. And the excrement, this is don't think that if you eat food on Shabbos, you don't have to go to the bathroom. It's talking about spiritually. Spiritually, that there is the leftovers, which is perish. Shu pasolis, that this is the leftovers, the waste products from the good stuff, the good elements of your food. It goes to your heart and to your brain. And the bad part, this is pushed out into the stomach, into the whatever is large intestines, small intestines. This is what's called birur. The good part is refined, and you use it for to enliven your body, and the bad part is pushed out. So spiritually, in the weekday, there is leftovers, and also even in the holidays, there's leftovers, but not on Shabbat. We'll talk about the holidays in a second. Shabbat, the whole thing is Shabbat is purely a gift from God. That's why on Shabbat, the main laws of Shabbat are things you should not do. Don't write, don't tie a knot, don't erase, don't build, don't cook, don't grind, right? All these things you're not supposed to do on Shabbat. It has to be done before Shabbat. It says, but on Shabbat, the whole thing is you don't do anything. It's like Shabbat is like a precious diamond that's given to you. Don't scratch it. Just don't do anything. The leftovers, this comes from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad that Adam ate from. Egotism. When Adam ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, he got egotism to the point where even he thought about God, he thought about himself, going to heaven, whatever it is. That's all the other religions in the world. There's this egotistical thing of what you're going to get. You're going to go to heaven, believe in me, you're going to go to heaven. That's kind from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. You think about yourself. That's called the excrement, thinking about yourself, selfishness. When Adam ate from this tree, it became good and bad. He felt good. He was selfish. What's wrong with being selfish? There's whole systems and meditations and that you just feel yourself. The whole thing is yourself. Exclude the world. There's just all there is me. There's only me. There's nothing else except for me. Because there's very popular things. It's me. All there is I. That all there is just the big me. This is the essence of evil. That's what happened when Adam ate from the tree. Success and power and this, whatever. Me, I want. This terrible thing called egotism was brought into the world when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And in every person, there's also this mixing up of good and bad. That eventually, essentially, is the essence of all these terrible things of addiction and aggression. Addictions, what does the person think about himself all the time? He can't stop thinking about himself. I want another shot. I want another food. I want another drug. I want another money. I want this. He's addicted, right? I have to watch my cellular phone. I have to watch the movies. I have to watch me, I, like a vacuum cleaner. It says in the weekday, and there is what's called waste products, excrement. And every person has this in the weekdays. It's not the same in every person. Some people have more good and bad. Some people are naturally, right? How do you call it? Altruistic or human. They care about others. They care about truth. They listen to their conscience. There's some people that have the good, in one thing, right? He's very good at interpersonal things, but when it comes to his wife, his children, he's not. Some people, when it comes to money, they're crazy. Some people, they have of a b'Shabbos, but on Shabbos, the whole idea of Shabbat is an opportunity. As titanag Hashem, you get pleasure on God above what's called the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, and there will not be any bad at all. Right? Shabbat is different. There's a whole story. I mean, I was maybe not the time to tell it, but there's this girl, what's her name? Ruth Benjamin. I think this lady. I heard the story from her personally. How she had, let's see, how did it go? She was brought up in a Jewish family. She was brought up, her mother was Jewish, but her mother converted. She got married to some missionary or something like that in Egypt. She was an Egyptian Jew, and she got married to some missionary from England. She changed the religion. And this girl was brought up as thinking she was a whatever it is, Episcopalian. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so they put her, and she was really good at it. And they put her into a nunnery. And somehow or other, an uncle of hers, her mother's brother, came to visit her. She had never seen him before. And her mother's brother was a little bit religious, and he brought her a mezuzah in this convent. And she didn't know what to do, but it lit up something inside of her. Finally, it's a long story, which we haven't got time to tell, but it's a beautiful story. She even wrote a book about it. Beautiful. And I mean, I heard this story from her, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, I think. Anyway, so finally it ended up, she came to this house of these Chabad people, and she came there for Shabbat. Now, she was used to, in the convent, that they had these rituals. And for the rituals, you had to fast for a few days and purify yourself and this. And then, like candles, whatever it is. And then you would go and see the bishop or whoever it was. And it was a whole, quiet, super serene state of mind you had to get yourself into and purify yourself. So she goes to this person's house, and it's Erev Shabbat, right before Shabbat. And they're cleaning up. There's like 10 kids in the house, and they're all running around. And she's helping the lady. She's a nice, this girl's nice person. So she's helping the lady in Shabbat. So the lady says, hey, you got to hurry up. You have to light the candles. So she said, okay, I'm going to wash myself up and prepare myself and, get myself into this austere, state of mind. She said, no, there's no time. You got to light the candles now, in another 5 minutes is going to be Shabbat. She said, yeah, but I'm all sweaty and I'm all this. So you'll change your clothes afterwards. Don't worry about it. You have to light the candles. She says, what do you mean light the candles? This is this holy thing. Judaism is holy, lighting the candles. I know what lighting candles is, and in the convent, light a candle and you have to think and meditate and contemplate, quiet your mind down. And meanwhile, the lady is saying, you haven't got any time. You have to light the candles. So she said, okay. So she lit the candles. She said she was blazing mad. What type of a religion is this? This is not a religion. This is terrible. Now I understand why everybody hates the Jews. I just think about this. She went up to her room where they kept her. She went up to the room. She was blazing mad. And she said she opened up the Torah. And suddenly, Shabbos. She felt it was Shabbat. She said everything was Shabbat. The room was Shabbat. The ceiling, the sweat, the dirt, her clothes, everything was holy. Shabbat. So she realized that's Judaism. So, so Shabbat is everything is holy. But she's a Jew, But on Yom Tov, on Shabbat, it says, then you get pleasure on God. This is above the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. I think about it. I heard the story. I don't remember 20 years ago. It's still very touching. Okay, but only by Yom Tov, it's written, perish chagekim. It says God says, if you don't do what I want, then the excrement of your holidays I'm going to spread on your face. Because Yom Tov, on the holidays, there is a little bit of refinement. We have to refine the world. That's why on Yom Tov, it is permissible to cook. It's permissible to cook and boil. So we see that we do work in the world. It's only forbidden just things like, planting and things that are not directly connected to food. So therefore, because it's permitted to work on your food on Shabbat, so we see that we do have to sort of work with the world and purify it on Shabbat. So therefore, there is a little bit of excrement and not good and selfishness in the holidays. How do we fix it up? How do we fix up the holidays? On Shabbat, you fix it up by just accepting the Shabbat, accepting the gift that God is giving to you. But the fixing up of Yom Tov, of the holidays, is l'machte l'miskene, to make the unfortunate people happy. Invite poor people to your table. When a person is happy, he wants everybody to be happy with him. Like it says, you have to be happy in your holidays, you and the Levites and the converts and everyone, the unfortunate people, because happiness fixes up negative things. You have to happy, make everybody happy. I know a lot of stories. That's a very basic thing in business also. You go for a business interview. If you come and you're confident, of course you have to know the material. You have to be proficient in whatever your job you're applying to. But if you go with a positive attitude and your positive smile, then there's much greater chances that it'll break through all of the barriers. Right? Also, I have a lot of long stories about that. But it says there was one shliach in France, especially, that the Rebbe told him. He said he doesn't know anything about French. He doesn't know about the French people. He had to open up a Chabad house in France. So the Rebbe said, one thing I want to tell you is that the French people, you have to be happy because the French people love a happy face. And there's a whole story that happened afterwards that he got into big trouble, that his building didn't meet the requirements of the inspector, and they were going to close his building down. And he went in to see this really mean, the head of the building, the department of building or something like that in France, and he had a really mean face. And he remembered what the Rebbe said, and he went in smiling. And this guy all of a sudden said, "You know what? I'll give you a new building." He says, "It's forbidden me to do this because in France there's difference between separation between church and state, but I'm going to give you a whole new building." He says, "You want to know why? Because I know other religious Jews and they have a miserable face. You have a happy face." He says, "I love a happy face." Exactly the language that the Rebbe used. When you're happy, so it says, that breaks through the bad, even the spiritual bad, even the spiritual egotism. And when you're happy, you want to make everybody happy. That everybody should be happy. Like it says, a person who's happy, and he wants everyone to be happy. And this, it fixes up the severities, since that he makes everyone equal. Even his big enemies come in, he's still happy. But a person that doesn't want in the holidays, he doesn't want to give anything to the poor, and then he's not fixing up the negative forces which are there, even on holidays, the nishar hapirish, so there remains the excrement, the negative. And therefore, the punishment is mina keneged mida. It is measure for measure. That because he is egotistical and he doesn't want to be happy, so therefore it says that his egotism is spread on his face. Gorim, because the egotism, this caused him that there should be all of this, how do you say, waste products, because he didn't fix it up. He was supposed to be happy on Yom Tov. Here on Yom Tov, you have the opportunity to fix up the bad. Not like Shabbos, where there is no bad, so to speak, spiritual. I mean, if a person has free will, he can do whatever he wants to. So even in a situation where there's no bad, you can always be bad. Right? There's people who want the money their whole lives, and then they get rich and they're miserable. They commit suicide. Who knows because of what? Because they get depressed. So just because you have what you want doesn't mean that you're going to be happy, right? And on Shabbat, God gives us big gift. A lot of people reject this gift. You don't have to have it, but all you have to do is accept it. On Shabbat, everything is purified. It says Yom Tov, you have to work. Yom Tov, you have to be happy. But on Shabbat, even though that you don't give anything to the poor people, nevertheless, there's not such a big punishment, because on Shabbat, in perish kalal, there is no, so to speak, waste products at all, because it is only drawing down from above to below. Okay, we're going to go over a little bit. Here we go. In the weekdays, so what are we saying? In our lives, right now, in the time we have no temple, and this is hinted at in the 12 loaves of bread, that we're in the holy temple. So now we have Shabbat and the weekday. On Shabbat, there's, so to speak, pure godliness is available. On the weekday, we have to work hard. All there is the external, and we have to dig in order to reveal the inside. This is in two ways, kafila uklisha. It's double and it's weak. Doubled and weak. Or we can say, for our purpose, there's a copy and a weak original. A weak original. Okay, so what's he going to say? He's going to say, and our time is up for this class. On Shabbat, that's the song, right? That's the song that the Ari wrote. Yagal Tamel revealed for you the secret of the 12 loaves of bread. Kafila doubled and weak. Or like a copy and the original, but it's weak. So he's going to say that pleasure that we get on Shabbat, the godliness, that's called weak. But the what we have in the weekday, in the regular week, W-E-E-A-K, it's called, how do you say, the very wispy, kalisha. It's the original pleasure of God, but it's very, very. So that is hinted at by the two letters. It says Inun Bishmei, they're in God's name. That's hinted. God's name is Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. The Rebbe is going to say the pleasure that we get on Shabbos, this comes from the letter Yud of God's name, but it's drawn down into the Vav. Vav is the third level of God, letter of God's name. That's on Shabbat. In the weekdays, what do we get? We get the last Hey of God's name, which is a copy, kfila. It's only a copy, a weak copy of the original Hey. The original Hey is God's Bina. Says that's the secret of the bread, and we're going to have to discuss this tomorrow because it's going to take a little bit of explanation, and God willing, tomorrow we'll explain it, and we'll also start the next mimer, which is in this, which is talking about why this world is better than all the next worlds. That's what we're going to start tomorrow, to understand that it's better one moment in this physical world than all them going to heaven and getting all the spiritual worlds than all the other religions, etc. promise. Why is it better to be in this world? How can it possibly be? We'll talk about that tomorrow. But tomorrow I want to explain, just I have to do it justice, exactly what's going on, what's the name of God, and what's this thing about the double, the copy that's revealed to us now, and which happens on Shabbat, that's the Yud and the Vav. We'll talk about this, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the Devar Malchut. Here we go.